pick.
With the first overall pick, here we are. We got the new on the clock lineup. What's up, guys? It's Tyler Jennings here. Got a new look lineup for you guys now that we're kind of back in the full swing of things. First off, Conor Dorney joining us here from Arizona. Connor, what's up?
Not much, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Of course, man. Got to get someone that knows the area very, very well, and also does a fantastic job on the pod. Speaking of another person does a fantastic job here, Peyton Soweer joining us from, I believe, Birmingham, Alabama. So, Peyton, welcome to the show. I know this is your first time on the pod with us.
Yeah, first time. It's good to be with both you guys. I know this is kind of a long time coming, but kind of in our own respective regions, and it's finally cool to come to one common ground here. So yeah, it'll be fun.
Yes, sir. It's three dudes who love baseball. That's the way we're gonna go about it here. But this week, if you have been looking at the site, we put out our new college top 100 update. Admittedly, are we running behind? It's 2 months to the draft basically at this point. However, needed to put out an update because everything was from before the college season, and let's just say nothing changed at the top. However, there's some movement a little bit farther behind in the top 10 that I want to talk about here. So the top 10 that we have put up on the site, obviously Roch Cholowky sticks at 1-1. There hasn't been a reason for us to really move him off the position at this point. I know some people on Twitter have been saying there's maybe some prospect fatigue there. However, there's really nothing that he's done to really move himself out of that position. But behind him, Vahn Lackey 2, Jackson Flora 3, Chris Hakopian comes in at number 4, AJ Gracia, Cam Flukey is at number 6, which we'll talk about here in a bit. Sawyer Struss-Snyder, Tyler Bell, Ryder Helfrich enters the top 10, and Drew Burris is at number 10. So, wanted to talk about the rise of Vahn Lackey real quick. And Peyton, I'll start with you. Vahn Lackey has been absolutely amazing this spring. A little cooler in the recent months, or at least the recent month. But whenever I got to see him, you can definitely tell that this is one of the more athletically gifted players in this class. And he's a surefire backstop the whole way. And he's really intriguing in terms of he's a bit atypical for a position where he's just super athletic and a lot like Kyle Teal.
Yeah. So Vahn is super fascinating. Like, it's clear that Georgia Tech has the premier offense in college baseball, right? But like watching Vahn progress these 3 years offensively has been fascinating. I was running some data on him earlier today. Vahn Lackey has a 50% hard hit rate against righties so far this year, and he's running a 9% end zone whiff. I know like some people talk about whether he could do both a corner outfield spot and maybe play on the infield or just kind of play more than one position. But I think Vahn is too valuable behind the plate to really like not entertain it per se, but just like as a full-time possibility, if that makes sense. But yeah, just to go off what you said, man, he's been unreal. And rightfully so in number 2 in our most recent update.
Absolutely. And realistically, he did play all 9 positions at one point this year. So it's not entirely possible that he could just do it again at the major league level,
Right.
So, Connor, I want to go to you on this one, but Jackson Flora, obviously right-handed pitcher, number 1 in the class, number 1 pitcher in general on the college side. And he's really just separated himself from the rest of the field, really. Introduced a new changeup, kick change. It has just been diabolically good on the season.
Yeah, I mean, UCSB is becoming a pitching factory here at the top of the draft. So it's been fascinating to watch. I think that he's certainly benefited from, a guy like Cam Flukey, unfortunately missing some time. I think that those guys would be kind of neck and neck if Flukey had been healthy the whole season. But I mean, the fastball is obviously the calling card for Flora. It's really impressive. I mean, just the ball explodes out of his hands, gets great extension. He's the type of arm that, you see teams covet in the top 10 for sure. So I think he's going to be, in the mix for that pick range from, 3 to 6 or so. He's going to get popped there, and it'll be really intriguing to see how quickly he moves up a system, because he feels like a guy that can, he can spin it, he can manipulate shapes really well. And so I think whatever org he goes to, they can tell him, hey, we're going to start, your usage is going to look like this. We're going to add this, tinker with these things. And he's going to be able to be someone who can make those adjustments really quickly.
Absolutely. And he's still super projectable as well. 6'5", 205, super lanky, super flexible too. I don't think we talk about the amount of athleticism and ease of operation with Flora, but it's super whippy arm action. And there's so much to dream on. You can see this guy adding another 20 pounds of muscle, and he could be sitting closer to 100 than he already is. So it'll be fascinating to see his development arc. You mentioned picks 3 to 6. I think that's roughly about the range where I see him going. That little corridor with, I believe it is the Twins, Giants, Pirates, and Royals. Those would be 4 pretty intriguing spots for him, especially think about the Twins. They took Riley Quick a year ago from Alabama, which looking at him now, he's had an incredible start to his pro career. So I think he kind of fits that same line. Not as big as Riley Quick. Riley Quick was a massive human being, but
right.
I want to interject here, and the draft is over 2 months away, and we'll see what the Pirates do. But could you guys imagine? You guys are.
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking the same thing.
Chandler, Jones, Flora, Barco. I'm sure I'm missing a dozen names, but could you guys imagine? But we'll see.
That's just unfair. That would be unfair.
That would be crazy.
Hey, and it might work out if Paul Skeens goes to another organization. You have somebody else in the pipeline. We'll see. But hey, I want to talk about, we talked about Fluky here the past couple minutes, and he's come back. He's pitched 2 times since returning from injury. Missed, I would say, 10 weeks of the season, maybe a little longer after it was a stress reaction in his ribs. But I'm sure there's people wondering why he didn't fall the way that he did. And I would say the easiest way to describe that is you look at what he did his freshman season. He, as much as he was a different pitcher back then, he pitched the whole season in rotation for them. Then you see 2025, where he becomes that stalwart in the rotation, has a fantastic season. He has, I would say, it was 220, 225 collegiate innings already to his name before the injury. So you're looking at, there is a track record of Fluky performing, not to mention he was a key piece for them making it to Omaha and getting to the College World Series final a year ago. And you saw him pitch against LSU, and he was fantastic outside the one run he gave up. And, you look at the polish, you look at the stuff. Whenever he came out and started his opening day start this year, he was introducing the curveball more. And he's got the slider, he's got the changeup to go with it. So looking at everything like that, and he's another guy who very flexible, has a ton of a projection remaining to his frame at 6'6", 210. It's really hard to say that Cam Flukey fell a ton, even with some of the risers in this class. Would you guys agree with that?
Connor, you want to hit on it first?
Yeah, I mean, I think one, there's the benefit of his injury not being arm related, which I think, certainly helps. And maybe if that were the case, you might see a little bit of a dip. But like you said, there's no denying the pedigree. The frame is, like you said, super projectable. He can, he's got a diverse arsenal. And I feel like that's really important these days with how much pitching development has shifted to tinkering with pitches and adding pitches and usage and things like that. You want a guy that's already used to that. And Fluky is that. And, like you said, he's performed against premium competition. So, regardless of how many innings he threw this year, I think, everything being equal, he's still going to be considered, the top 2 college arms in the class. And I'm sure there's plenty of teams that have him above Flora. Like I wouldn't, necessarily argue too much with that. So I think we'll see, what happens on draft day. You never know what's going to come about in the next couple of months. But I think that he's certainly done enough, regardless of how many innings he got used this year because of the injury. Like he's still done enough to prove what he's capable of at the next level.
Yeah.
I think Conor hit it right on the nail. Going back to his debut this year, or excuse me, not his debut, but back from injury against Texas State, like he didn't skip a beat. He was up to 97, averaging nearly 20 inches a ride on his fastball. And his second pitch that he used most often was that curveball that Tyler just hit on. And he's got that bullet slider in his back pocket too, and his changeup ain't half bad either. I wouldn't be surprised, just like what Conor said, if Fluky is still above Flora on certain boards or in certain rooms. But he has proven more than once now that his stuff has not taken a step back. And that's really promising to see from an athlete like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we're talking about a guy that if he had been healthy the whole year, he would have been the first college arm, or I think it would be the third, in the first non-Wake Forest pitcher in this decade to have over 250 career innings and taken in the draft. I think the other two are Rhett Lauder and Chase Burns.
Wow.
So
Wow.
to put into perspective how rare it is to have this kind of track record, it really does speak to how volatile, and I don't want to say volatile, but like how good of a pitcher he is, and how long he's been so good. So, like you had mentioned, Conor, it's a non-arm injury. I really don't think he fell all that far. So that's the main reason why he's still SB2 in this class for us and for probably everybody else as well. So, speaking of somebody that's not inside the top 10, a name that I'm sure some people are probably wondering where he is on our board, Justin Lebron, shortstop out of Alabama. It's really tough for us to put where do we put him in his draft stock right now, Peyton? And I'll go to you on this because, SEC is your background. He is the third straight year where he starts off hot, gets the SEC play, and starts sputtering a little bit. However, looking at the background data, he still hammers fastballs. It's spin and changes that have really been giving him fits. So I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are, Peyton, on that.
Yeah. When you look at his 3 years at Alabama, so his K rate his freshman year was just under 21%. Last year it was just over 24%, but this year it's 20.2%. So he's not striking out as often as he is. He's still getting his walks. I think one thing that popped out to me is, I don't know how much you guys follow BABIP, but his first 2 years at Bama, it was well over 350. This year it's 282. So yeah, against lefties, like he it's more like he's looking middle away to damage baseballs. His end zone whiff is just about where it's normally been. He's not chasing as often as more. So against lefties, he has a ground ball rate over 70%. So it's part of this, I guess, is just bad luck, but I'd also back LeBron in saying I know their offense is starting to pick it up, but there's not really that much help around him, and guys and really staffs are going after him. But that's what I got.
No, that kind of opens up the perspective a little bit, and I'll add to that perspective. Last I checked in SEC play, he has a 9% whiff rate on fastballs, which is up from what it is before. And we've talked about before, he has a good history of pummeling velocity, and he can delete as well as anybody on the top rail in terms of power, in terms of being able to hit the fastball up there. But the slider whiff rate has been above 40% in SEC play. I believe it's closer to 45%, which you mentioned, Peyton. These are guys attacking him, and this has been a case every single year where he's just struggling with these better sliders, and teams exploit that. So I'm curious to see how a team in the future, like, how do you develop that? How do you fix that? I can look at a bit of a swing path change because he does have a path that's conducive for swinging over sliders. But also at the same time, how do you teach being able to recognize spin? You know, how is that an easy trick? I guess this is probably a rhetorical question, but like in terms of noticing the spin on a baseball, it's not very easy to do.
No, especially in the SEC.
So I don't know. It's a very interesting talking point, but I think with LeBron, like, it's still elite power and speed, and that's things that teams covet a lot. Obviously, the hit tool has its warts, and I feel like the defense is still. I don't want to say it's plus anymore. He's had his faults as a defender this spring. Hasn't been getting set up properly. I feel like he's rushing himself a little bit. But at the same token, he's shown in the past the elite range. He has a quick first step. He has the arm strength to play the position. So you're still looking at a guy that, again, power speed at a premium position. Even with some hit tool questions, there's something to work with here, and there's still upside.
Is he still perfect on stolen bases this year?
Let me double check. Hi, doggo.
Yeah, she says that he's not, so we'll have to back up that research.
He has 36 stolen bases. He has been caught once.
So she was right. So my researcher, yeah, she's 10 pounds. So shout out to my researcher.
Researcher deserves
one more thing.
Yeah,
one more thing on
she'll get a treat after.
LeBron, this was going into last weekend. 110 batted balls or balls in play. He's averaged a 92 average exit velocity. So again, like, I'm just kind of throwing numbers out here, but it is just kind of like, just throw your hands up, and that's
Yeah. I feel like he's one of those players who he's going to make you say wow in good ways and bad ways, in the same game sometimes. So I think it's going to be about maybe having more patience than you would normally typically expect out of a guy that's, playing shortstop in an SEC school. And I think if there's teams comfortable with that, like, yeah, you can't deny the tools. So if maybe like Peyton said, with some of the lack of help around him, maybe he's pressing, like, those sort of things are all in play. So, that's kind of stuff you have to figure out and get into the wiring of a guy to figure out if it's going to be an issue long term. And I mean, whoever takes him, all of a sudden, if, the hit tool ticks up, that looks like a pretty darn good pick where he's going to get picked.
Yeah. Go ahead, Peyton.
Sorry, Tyler. I was just going to cap off saying, we can bookmark this on May the 7th, but I still firmly believe one of these teams or one of these orgs in the teens is gonna get him. Would both of you agree?
Yep, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I can totally see somebody still gambling on the athlete, gambling on the tools that you have in this profile, and saying, we're putting faith in our development team. Let's get this figured out. And if you can unlock a bit more of a hit tool, you can just get it to the 45. I feel like 45 hit tool with, I dare I say it, plus power potentially. The ability to delete delete velo on the top rail, and also pull as well as he does, and then you have a premium defender at shortstop, that is a fantastic player at the big league level.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one that makes a lot of money.
Yes, it is. Yes, yeah. It is. All right, so I want to switch topics here. We're going to talk about the Southpaws in this class because I think it's really interesting. You know, at the beginning of the year, I put out there that I think Mason Edwards is LHP 1 in this class. And at this point, you know, he's in contention for it. However, I had it listed as Carlon, Edwards, and Dietz on the board. Connor, I want to start with you because you've seen Carlon. And first off, the seamless transition from a closer to a starter, and not only just a normal starter, he is the ace of that program, and he's been one of the best starters in the country this year. Talk me through that and how we're looking at this guy being the number one Southpaw in this class right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's like you said, the transition to go from a guy that's at the back end of a bullpen into a Friday night role and not only be as good, but like maybe better than he was at the back end of a bullpen. You know, it's pretty insane. It's even crazier when you realize he's, you know, really only using 2 pitches. And not just like getting away with using 2 pitches, but dominating with 2 pitches. I think it's such a difficult angle, the way that he comes down the mound for hitters to pick up, and it's righties and lefties. It's not like he's a heavy splits guy one way or the other. I mean, it's nobody's seeing the ball out of his hand. He's been up to 100, obviously. That's been, you know, noted by a lot of people. And I feel like he's one of those guys who, you know, if you look at the glass half empty, you're like, oh, is he going to succeed with 2 pitches at the next level? But maybe they're thinking like, hey, we're not going to try and tinker with a guy who's already having so much success throwing these 2 pitches. And there's probably an org out there who's like, hey, if we add this or we add that, all of a sudden he's, you know, maybe one of the best left-handed, you know, starting pitching prospects in the game. So I've just been really impressed with his development. Like you said, you know, it's difficult to transition from the bullpen to, you know, a starting role for a, you know, Power 5 program. Like, he's handled it super well. I mean, you can just see the intensity that he pitches with. I mean, he's really amped up in those big moments and is not afraid of the spotlight. And so I think that he's very deserving to be, you know, the top Southpaw on the board.
Hit the nail on the head, my man. And I'm going to add off of that too, which I want to put this out there. If you go on the Arizona State website and go to Cole Carlon's profile, they have done such a good job of kind of like putting these statistics on his page, which I'd imagine they do it for the whole roster essentially. However, I'm gonna start with this. Carlon's 95.8 mile an hour fastball sinker average velocity is 7th among pitchers with 50 plus innings. He also has hit 101. That is the second best mark with at least 50 innings this year. And to add on top of that, his overall whiff rate on pitches in the zone, 34.8%, is second among pitchers with that same mark. And his 45.3 overall swing and miss rate is tied for first in the nation. I wish I knew who was number 1 right now. However, that should put into perspective how well he's done. And like you mentioned, it's 2 pitches. He's throwing his slider more than his fastball still, which that slider really plays off that angle. But the command jump, everything has really just ticked up this year, which is fantastic. And we've seen guys with 2 pitches do well at the major league level. Tyler Glasnow is obviously the big arm with that, but if you get him the 4 pitches that are all average or plus, hey, you take that and you run with it. Want to talk about Hunter Dietz because he's kind of a similar profile, Peyton, and you know the angle he creates with his breaking balls is impressive. But I would also wager those breaking balls are maybe a tick better than what Carlon's slider is.
Yeah. So I first want to start with Dietz of credit to him for just taking the game 1 role, given Arkansas's kind of up and downs the first half of conference play, and has kept them in it. And don't look now, but if they keep winning, if they win a couple more games, like they are right back in that hosting picture. I think of the three, I think I like Dietz's fastball. No, I like Carlon's better, but I do like his cut. I like his cut. I like that cutter that he has, because it's fascinating to see. Like, obviously, there's different under the hood differences between both Carlon and Dietz, but when you look at their pitch plots, like, it is freakishly similar. They've got that good ride fastball and that bullet, slider cutter. Dietz's cutter is fascinating, and just like Carlon, he can throw it to both lefties and righties. Dietz, I believe, can spin the ball a little bit better. I think I was looking at this earlier today. Like, Carlon's slider, he gets like just under 5.5 feet of extension on it, and then Dietz's cutter, he gets nearly 6.5 feet of extension. But I wonder, once they get to pro ball, like, look, when I'll even throw Mason Edwards in this picture. Tyler, I know that's not what you asked. But when you like try and classify, like, college left-handed pitcher one, I don't really know if there's a right answer. It's just all just personal preference, right? I wonder if Dietz and Carlon are like definite kick change candidates. Like, I know, like, they've both thrown changeups in the past, or at least this year, but at least like more often, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with that. And like, you mentioned kick changes, and I know there's been discussion about this, how guys, like, they've implemented it, but then they just don't throw it as much. And I know Carlon, when I was able to see him against, I want to say it was Mississippi State it was like Globe Life.
Yeah,
he was dancing it in there a little bit, and there's times where I thought it was like, hey, this looks like an above average pitch, but he also didn't use it as much because obviously the fastball slider combo is just so elite. And then when I saw Dietz, he didn't even throw a changeup. He was just like, here's my breaking ball, have fun, He had like 22 whiffs on breaking pitches alone against South Carolina when I saw him. So yeah, and to bring Edwards into this conversation as well, he's another guy who plays off the angle. He's another guy that's got some crossfire to him. It's a steeper, less traditional like left-hander as well, because you would think with the drop and drive he has, he's gonna have a lower release, but then all of a sudden it's like 6.4 feet off the ground. There's deception there. The angle really plays. The changeup in particular for Edwards, I think, is fascinating because he has a legitimate changeup. And I was looking at this the other day when I was writing it up. Edwards' off-speed pitches, every single one of them, the breaking ball, the changeup, have a whiff rate of over 60% on the year. Wow. And mind you, it is May 7th at the time of recording. If you want to talk about how impressive that is, just it's mind-boggling how good Mason Edwards has been this year. But at the same token, he hasn't taken the velocity jump that we thought we were going to see at the beginning of the year, because he was 95, 96 in practice or practices before the season, but he's really just been like 89 to 94, 95 at times this spring. But at the same time, he's been performing as well as anybody in the country. He leads the country in strikeouts by like 15. I think what you mentioned, Peyton, there is no right answer to this discussion. But at the same token, I think we can also appreciate how good these three arms have been this year. And the idea of that all three of them could be first rounders really speaks to the strengths that they have.
I would continue with Edwards as, like, I don't know, at least for draft eligible guys, I don't know if there's a left-hander that works as well north-south in the zone as well as Mason. I don't think there is one. And like talk about another guy that spins the ball well. I know the velocity's down. I know, like, this spring, just like you said, it's been low 90s, maybe hit a 4 or 5. Curveball's diabolical, man. It's so good. It's so good. But
yeah. At this point, again, 60% whiff rates in May is just impressive. And these are not small samples either. These are pretty substantial sample sizes. I think he obviously sequences the best out of the three. The field of pitches there, but these are 100+ pitch sample sizes we're talking about here. That should speak to how good he's been this year. Now that we've talked about the southpaws, I do want to talk about the right-handers a little bit behind Flora and Fluky. Liam Peterson, we discussed about this in our group chat, but Peterson still fascinates me as this is high octane stuff. The command has not taken the jump that we thought it would. But then you throw in like Cade Townsend is now on the verge of being a first rounder as a draft eligible sophomore. You look at some guys behind that have really put their name up there. Logan Reddemann, I feel like, has put himself in the position where he's the best right-handed pitcher behind those two that we mentioned before with Flora and Fluky. Then you're looking at guys like Tegan Kuhns and Ben Blair, Gabe Gackle, Jack Riddell. But really speaking to Liam Peterson, Peyton, I know we've discussed this before, but we're wondering what his upside is at the next level. Do we still see a starting pitcher, or do we see a guy that you put in the back end of a bullpen and just let it rip?
I think there's pros and cons to both. But if you're asking me personally, I still think there is legitimate starter upside. I was running some data on him last week in his Oklahoma start. Like, his force team got up to 101, by the way. 71% strikes, and he's averaging 20 inches of induced. He only averaged 40% strikes with his changeup and nearly 50% strikes with the spin, with the breaking pitches. I know it sounds pretty broad, but like there is not. I mean, coming into the year, man, I thought it like hand up. I thought it was going to be between him and Flora for right-handed pitcher one, Fluky in there too. But I think it's just like you got to give credit to him for willing to not be the game one guy with how Aiden King is going. But I think all of this, I'm not a big fan of the word fit, but I do think it's viable for whoever picks him. If you get him in an org like Cleveland, Atlanta, Seattle, they are going to make this work. I bet the worst case scenario they look at this is if they've got a long man or just a power arm in the back of a pen for 10 years. Maybe it's a little strong, but just to get the point across.
Point has been put on the board, and everybody can read it. I enjoy it. So I want to talk about Townsend and Connor. I'll go to you because we talked about this before. Obviously, West Coast kid had helium as a draft guy in high school, but went to Ole Miss, had a so-so freshman year, but the jump he's made as a sophomore is really, really impressive. And, it's looking like he's getting closer to being a first-round pick. We've got him at 21, so the jump that he made from, I believe we had him in the 80s at the start of the year. He's one of the biggest risers from update to update. And it's fascinating what he's been able to do because it's like 6 pitches that have just been dominant.
Yeah, no, I was just about to say, I think he throws like 25 or 26 pitches, something crazy like that. I mean, it's, obviously he doesn't have the frame that, some of the guys we're talking about have. He's not Liam Peterson at 6'6". He's not Fluky at 6'5", 6'6". Like, he's a smaller statured guy, but you just love the athlete. You love the way he gets down the mound. You love the arsenal. I mean, to me, there's a little bit of like Bryce Miller in his profile. I don't know if that's like fair to say, but the jump that he's made, I mean, I've seen some people throwing him in the top 10 now of this draft, which probably a month or 2 months ago seemed like a wild idea. I know that he dealt with a shoulder thing, if I remember correctly, earlier this year that seems to have checked out fine. So, I mean, as long as everything looks good there, like this is a guy that, you know, a lot of the same pitching development organizations that Peyton was just mentioning would be probably thrilled to have a guy like Cade Townsend in their organization.
Yeah, they'll say that the shoulder thing was definitely an interesting bit because I thought at the time of injury that it looked like a season ender, and shoulders are not something that you mess with pitching. I would say they're more detrimental than an elbow injury because we've seen guys with Tommy John come back stronger than ever. Shoulders are very, very volatile. Is probably the best way I can describe it. Like Zach Wheeler was sitting closer to 100 last year, had TOS, and now he's sitting in the mid-90s and has to evolve himself as a pitcher. You look at Cade Townsend, when he came back from that injury, he had missed 2 weeks, I believe, or not even that. But since then, you know, I had talked about he hadn't gone 6 innings in a start all year. He has gone 6 innings complete 3 times in a row following that. In that span, gave up 3 runs, only walked 3 guys, and had struck out 21 across that. So, you know, he definitely is he's pitching better than what he was before the injury, which I think is a fascinating thing. You talk about the SEC being just a gauntlet of a season, and he was at Florida, Mississippi State, LSU, Tennessee, Georgia, which was arguably the toughest outing of those 5 since he came back, and then also just pitched at Arkansas and performed well across 5 2/3. So, you know, this is the guy, north-south profile, but Bryce Miller, I see it. When you mentioned that both me and Peyton both sprung up on our chairs and we're like, you know what, this is exactly it, because he's got that higher release, kind of the drop and drive down the mound. It fits in perfectly. And if I remember correctly, Bryce Miller wasn't even that highly sought after because he was a senior guy at A&M, and is all of a sudden like he just gets the perfect fit with Seattle. And we're talking about a guy that's now he touched 99 in rehab the other day. I don't think Bryce Miller has touched 99 in his career before that point. So it's a good mold to go after. And it's fascinating. I do want to talk about Logan Reddemann, and this is going to be moving into our noteworthy risers in this class. You know, Reddemann was like 95th on the update before the season because the track record of strikes was there. He performed very well, but had missed some time with injury both his freshman year and sophomore year. You know, they weren't super big sample sizes. You go to this year, the switch has just flipped. You know, everything has gotten better. I wrote about it a couple weeks ago, but the fastball has ticked up. He's now sitting in the mid-90s. Has touched 99. And there's more induced vertical. There's slightly less horizontal, so he's getting more cut right shape on it. He's got a sinker, but hasn't used it much. And the cutter that he brought in this year has been unbelievably filthy and has been a huge game changer for his profile. He's got the curveball. The changeup, as much as the changeup doesn't like wow you with the shape, it's still above average because of the way he tunnels it, the way he throws strikes, and the way that he can locate it as well as anybody in the country. Does that mean that his profile is, I say lack for a better term, not as projectable as some of his others? I would say so. I think he's very much closer to his upside ceiling as, you know, throwing it out there. Cal Scolari has turned into a guy that like this. He's at his ceiling. I say Reddemann's there, and the only thing you can really work on is like separating the fastball shapes. Had spoken to Drew Toussaint, who works with the Mets for that piece, and he had mentioned the idea of separating the 4-seamer and the 2-seamer, so that way the 4-seamer can help you get some whiffs upstairs, get the 2-seamer, the sinker in to kind of get you some ground balls and help you get some more outs against lefties. while all maintaining the velocity gains that he's had. The cutter has been, again, just filthy. So for Reddemann, it's like he's number 13 on the board, and for good reason. He's done a fantastic job. He struck out 18, I do believe, against Rutgers a couple weeks ago. Granted, he hasn't pitched much since because of I believe it's like a dead arm or arm fatigue. But even with that, it's what he's been able to do this year has been fascinating.
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting with him. Like you said, there's not a ton of projection left, but for probably where he's going to get picked, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, if he's one of the first guys to the big leagues from this class, like, it wouldn't entirely surprise me. He's obviously, like you said, the command is really the selling point here, and I think that's a really good floor to have, even if he is like a back end type starter. Depending on where you're picking in the first round, if you're picking 20 to 30, like, that seems like a guy that you might want to take in that range.
I would say maybe a bit more powerful than Michael McGreevy was a few years ago in his draft year. I'd say that's a good fit. Peyton, I want to go to you because I know you wanted to talk as well, because I know you were giggling a little bit during the talk about the cutter.
Yeah, so like it's just funny you brought up the Rutgers start. Like, I had to not double take, but triple take what I was seeing on my screen that night. Tyler, I know we talked about this in our chat, but like, I feel like these bullet cutter slider offerings are kind of like the new wave as like premier off speed breaking pitches. Like, I think Cease's slider, cutter, gyro, bullet, whatever you want to call it, like, is disgusting. Like, Chase Burns as of recently has it too. Like, it's a tick less velocity, but like, Reddemann's got it, man. 5-pitch guy. I think you hit the hammer on the nail about the changeup 4-seam separation. I have a feeling that'll get ironed out. I do think, like, I remember writing him up like before opening weekend, and I was like, I wonder if this guy could go in like the second round. This guy isn't going before pick 30. Like, I mean, it's just been that good. Is he by chance throwing this weekend? Do we know that, or is he just for conference tournament?
I don't think there's been really anything said on when he's going to return at this point, at least not that I've been told or have seen elsewhere. Mm-hmm. It would be fun because they do have Oregon. They are 24-0 in Big Ten play. As much as they have been so dominant in conference play, Oregon is up there with USC in terms of the toughest competition they faced in conference play. And mind you, they faced 3 SEC teams in Arlington this year and beat all of them. And they wall up Texas A&M. They wall up Tennessee. They hit 5 home runs against Tegan Kuhns, if I remember correctly. Granted, they needed Roch Cholowky to save their skin against Mississippi State. However, that was the game of the year, and they pulled it out in the end. I believe it was Aiden Aguayo with a go-ahead triple pinch hit in the 10th inning. But yeah, at this point, it doesn't look like it will be Reddemann on the bump this weekend. I will say Wyland Moss, Will Sanford, that's a really, really underrated 2027 pitching matchup.
That's fun.
Not to mention Oregon has Colin Clark going on Saturday. Clark is draft eligible this year. He's an interesting cat. I don't want to say I considered him for this board because I think that's wrong. But going into some of the deeper stuff, like, there's some intriguing stuff there with Clark. So got to put that out there. So moving on past that, other notable risers in this class, Peyton, I'm going to open up the floor to you. Auburn, Eric Guevara. We're talking about a guy that has just torn the cover off the baseball. I'm going to let you take the floor on this one because this is one of your guys.
Yeah. So, I mean, what a year Guevara's had, man. He tantalizes or obliterates the middle, the outer half of the plate. The end zone width is down this year. I know like last year, he was kind of hitting all over the order when I was there. It would have been from second to seventh. But this year, man, I mean, like he's been up there. I mean, he's right up there with Rembert as their most, words are hard, guys. Sorry. But, kind of their better right-handed stick in the lineup. He's got a 71% hard hit rate against lefties, so he's seeing the ball well out of both sides. I know it sounds pretty broad, but like, man, that guy will make you smile like at any time of the day, man. Even if he goes 0 for 4, like that guy is still as loose as one can be. I do think the hot corner is where he's going to stick. I know, there were, discussions about trying to move him to the 6 or play second, but I do think third base is where he will be. He's going to be a fascinating, I don't think him going round 4, 5, 6 is, I think that's kind of where he's going to go. And so when you put 2 and 2 together, like that's a top 150 player, top 120 player. So like he's had a fantastic year. He has 64 hits going into this week, but yeah, fun player.
Very fun. I was enjoying watching his. You mentioned lefties having a 71% hard hit rate. I think that's really impressive, and he can go opposite way with ease. Has 110 exit velocities, 110 mile an hour exit velocities going that way too. So it's not like he's just blooping it out to right field. He's really pummeling the baseball with authority, and it's like you had mentioned, fascinating. He's as loose as ever, both in the box and as a person. He was one of the guys that I looked at late in the board process, and I was like, why have I not put him on the board yet? I was like, what was I missing before this? Because this is a really, really good player. Not to mention, he's the lone Panamanian-born player on this list, and I remember writing awesome. There are 6 Panamanian-born players in the league right now. Obviously, you look back at the past, Rod Carew, Mariano Rivera, Panamanian-born players. So Panama's a bit of a hotbed. It has been for a while, and Guevara is going to be the next one coming in. Connor, I want to talk to you. Mulivai Levu from UCLA. He's risen to number 30 on our list. He was kind of closer towards 50, maybe even 60 on the last update. The feel to hit for power, despite the awkwardness of the swing, has been fascinating. And he's not a bad defender at first base, but obviously you look at it, it's a first base profile. But the bat's been so good, I don't think the defense is going to matter at the next level like it usually does.
Yeah, I think that, obviously there's certain guys in this class who, once you go beyond the, hey, this is the projectable type guy that we're going to stick in a corner and you get down to the list of, okay, who's going to, maybe be a little bit limited in what their profile looks like, but we know that they're going to hit, and he's one of those guys. For as much attention as that offense has gotten and how good it's been all year, he's been a consistent performer, and like you said, the bat to ball skills are great. He's mashing it everywhere, and so I think despite the fact that he's not going to be able to play probably a position other than first base, I think that that's still a valuable guy to add to your system because the floor is so high, and those are the guys that maybe 2 years down the road, all of a sudden he finds himself in a role because the guy gets hurt and that kind of thing, and you trust a player like that to be put into your lineup and immediately get results out of him.
Absolutely. And to speak on, we talk about track record, Cam Flukey. Mulivai Levu has a 321 average across his entire career. He has currently 32 home runs. The biggest thing is that this is his career best year. He's hitting 347, 444, 617, 14 home runs. He's kept the strikeouts at a low compared to what he has in the past. Struck out 51 times as a freshman, 48 last year. He's only struck out 27 times this year, while also, as aggressive as he's been, his walk rate is pretty darn good for what it has been, because he's very aggressive. He is a guy that likes to expand the zone quite a bit. But again, the track record's there. You had mentioned off the top of the head, as much as he is a first base guy, the bat to ball skills to power has been fantastic. Maybe you tweak the swing a little bit to kind of help him with high velocity, but other than that, it's as good as a bat as you're going to find, especially in a lineup like that where UCLA is just. This is probably a bad comparison, Georgia Tech West, in terms of how deep that lineup is. So
yeah,
that's the only thing I could think of in terms of a comparison. So people feel free to flame me in the comments or replies. I don't care.
I'm sure
more guys. I'm used to it.
And the dog too.
Yes, and the dog.
Yeah,
Cannot forget.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
However, please be nice on the dog. Please be nice. Unpaid
she tries her best.
Unpaid intern, apart from treats, we need to make sure she's taken care of. Two more guys I want to kind of highlight before we kind of move on to the next thing here. Cade Ferraro, Texas Tech. It is some of the best left-handed mix of power and hit in this class. He doesn't have the lofty home run totals that you expect for a guy that hits the ball as hard as he does. And that's mainly because the swing's super flat, doesn't have the feel to backspin the baseball. However, he uses the whole field. The hit tool is fantastic. He doesn't have a very high whiff rate. I believe it's only 15%. He takes his walks. He hammers the baseball. His highest hit exit velocity, I believe, is 115 this year. He is a guy that has risen up the board from a guy who was at Blinn Junior College and helped them win the JUCO World Series a year ago, or even 2 years ago, I think. He's done a very good job of transitioning to D1 and doing well. That Texas Tech lineup can match for what it's worth. And then Evan Dempsey, FGCU, represent Dunk City. If you remember 2013, Evan Dempsey came to Collegiate USA trials last year as a two-way guy. And Peyton, we both watched him. But when he pitched, we're talking about a guy that was 89, 91, but has a hammer breaking ball. 3,200 RPM spin. He's now elevated to where he's, 92, 95, bumps a 6. Very good fastball shape. Has a flat vertical approach angle. And the breaking balls are just as good as ever. So I think he's a guy that has really put himself onto the scene. I think he's a top 100 pick at this point. So those are two guys I wanted to highlight before we talk about some kind of some fallers here, admittedly. And what do we think has to change? First off, I'll start with Max Maloney from Oregon. The whiff rate's up this year, Connor, but as much as he's a guy that had a higher floor a year ago, that floor has kind of gone away, and the glove's good, but the impact's fallen short of expectations this year. So I'm interested to hear what you think should change with him. How do you kind of help this profile moving forward?
Yeah, I think you have to figure out if you're leaning into a guy that's always just going to be essentially a bench bat, defensive replacement type shortstop, or if he can recapture some of the magic that he had last year. Obviously, he's done it at a high level in the Big Ten. So there is a history there, but you are a little bit, concerned for sure. The walk rate isn't super great. And, obviously the pure, impact, I guess he has when he is making contact, it's not like he's going to be a guy that's going to move over to third base because, the power's not going to play there. So I think you just have to figure out okay, is this, a guy that is going to be a valuable utility bench bat? glove first sort of, guy that'll stick around on a roster for a while, or can he get back to some of what he was doing last year? So, I'm sure there'll probably be some split opinions on that, but I think if you view, 2025 as his true, talents, if you will, I think that's probably going to get him taken higher than what he's done this year.
Yeah, and with Maloney, like you look at a year ago, his ability to pull baseballs, especially over the fence, is what really helps him. He doesn't hit the ball very hard. I was looking at the other day, his max exit velocity is like 107. When you look at guys in the past who kind of have some of their numbers, Merrick Houston didn't really have a ball hit harder than that a year ago. Granted, Merrick Houston was a first-round pick, but he kind of fits that profile of like, you look at the hit tool, it's great. Power is never really going to be there. However, there's outside mechanical changes to make to kind of help that. But the whiff rate has been kind of the issue with Maloney this year. I think I agree with you where it's like at the future, this is probably a guy that's like a utility bat coming off the bench. It's going to be renowned for his glove, but I want to see the impact come back to what it was a year ago. Can you get him to be a little stronger? Can he hit the ball harder? Go from there. Brady Bollinger, I'm going to say this. I'm going to put this where credit is due. Brady Bollinger has been as hot as anybody in the country the past 10 games for Kansas. And we talk about Kansas being able to take JUCO, D2, all these guys. Tyson LeBlanc has turned into one of the premier bats in the Big 12. Bollinger comes from the same JUCO college as Bryce Harper, which I'm not going to compare him to Bryce Harper, but had a fantastic 2025, hasn't really met those expectations from a year ago. But Peyton, we saw him last year where it felt like there's some mechanical tweaks to make because he was behind a little bit on velocity. I think some teams are exploiting that a little bit.
A little bit. I want to preface with Bollinger's last year, hit 350 with over 35 extra base hits, with an on base over 500, or excuse me, just under 500. As we speak, he's hitting 296. I don't have the batted ball data right in front of me, but I remember writing him up a while back, and just like he said, these past 10 games, in the week I wrote him up, like he was clicking, and and it's not only him too. It's LeBlanc. It's like 5 or 6 guys in that offense. Like they keep doing this, like they're going to be a national seed. But we'll keep it on Brady right now. Like he's still getting he's not walking as often as he did last year. Like he had more walks and strikeouts last year. Now it's an even 1-to-1. He's got 39 walks, 39 Ks. He's not slugging as much. Like I'm not worried about it. Like, to be completely honest, like I think he is a hitter, and hitters figure it out. Like good hitters figure it out. He is a first baseman. I know he's played left field the majority of the year for Kansas. He is a first baseman. That's kind of all I got. Like, the Big 12 is a offense predominant conference. So Tyler, when we were kind of, when you mentioned at USA where he was kind of getting blown up a little bit by, 96, 97 by every guy, like that's kind of like expected, kind of. I mean, but I'm not worried about Brady. He's had a fine year. And he's not the only one that's regressed from an outstanding first year.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. And you mentioned last year with Bollinger, the 35 extra base hits. I believe that was one of, if not the top mark in the country. And he was just fascinating. I was banging the table. I was like, if he's not in carry, I am going to scream at the USA complex. I don't care how loud it is. I am a very, very loud person when I get the chance to. But I wanted to see him, and it was good to kind of get that learning lesson where like him and Levu are kind of similar, where they have these like exaggerated hand movements where they go from like here, they kind of move down, And at that point, if you're seeing, like you had mentioned, 95, 96, even 97, the ball's already there. So you're already going from here to here as the ball is coming in, and you're getting behind on it as a result of that. So, but yeah, like you had mentioned, he's one of the hottest guys in the country right now. I think at this point it's evened out, and he's going to be a guy that's still highly sought after with the way that his tools have been the past 2 years. Last thing before we kind of wrap things up and kind of talk about guys who just missed this list, I want to give some shout outs to some mid-major guys that made the list. Ben Blair, Liberty, and I don't think Ben Blair is getting his roses appropriately on public Twitter. He has been one of, if not the best mid-major starter in the country this year. He's added like a bridge cutter to kind of help him with his really outlier sinker and the sweeper. He's got a changeup. He's been fantastic this year. I kind of regret not going to go see him, but Ben Blair is going to be a top 50 pick, I feel like. Carter Beck, Indiana State. Carter Beck's been fascinating. He's a smaller guy, started his career in Canada, went D3, jumped to Indiana State, and is now one of, if not the best mid-major bats in his class. He plays with fire. It's a guy that scouts are going to love for the way he plays the game. But the tools are there. He's very twitchy, very athletic. And then, Peyton, I know you're going to love this one. Steele Murdock.
Steele Murdock, baby.
17 strikeout game against UCSB and Jackson Flora put him on the map squarely. He's not been great since. However, you look at that fastball slider combination, it's one of the best in the country. We talk about a guy who's been a 2-pitch starter. He is a 2-pitch guy, and he's been up to 97, 98. The slider's a hammer. It's a guy you put in the back of a bullpen. He probably rises quickly in his class, and is I don't want to say a closer, but like a leverage guy, like 7th, 8th inning, kind of like a setup guy to the closer. But the stuff's fascinating, and I'll let you kind of speak to that too, because I know that 17 strikeout game had you giddy.
It's another guy with the bullet slider. Just going to throw that out there.
Yep.
But yeah, just to quickly hit on it, like the 4-seam is real. Like, do we know what Steele Murdock's season ERA is off the top of our heads?
It's not great. I can tell you that much.
Well,
unfortunately,
to be fair, he won't be the first guy in the world that has had an ERA in his draft year where it's been not great.
Mm-hmm.
Thatcher Hurd immediately comes to mind. It's a fastball slider predominant tandem. The changeup is real. Like when you look at his pitch plot, it looks very similar to Liam Peterson. I'm not taking vertical approach or extension or anything into that mix. But just like you said, the 17 strikeout game put him on the map. And he has the ability to spin the baseball, which is a thing teams are intrigued by. I wonder if he could throw a cutter too. I wonder if he could be a cutter candidate. But yeah, there's plenty of intrigue. So shout out Steele Murdock.
Yes, sir. And found his ERA, it is 6.1.
Okay.
Not great. However, Brian Wu first comes to mind for me. This is a guy that he was Cal Poly. Yeah, he was Cal Poly. He had an ERA his draft eligible year of like 7. And here we are, we're talking about Brian Wu. He threw 6 innings, 1 hit, no runs, 2 walks, 9 Ks the other day for Seattle. He's been arguably their best arm the past 2 years. So to give you an idea that like teams don't look at the what's the best
surface
way to describe this? Yeah, surface numbers. They don't
back in the baseball card.
Yeah, they don't look at the stat line and go, "Oh, okay, this guy sucks because he has a 6.1 ERA." To be able to watch him pitch and go through the plots, the angle that the slider plays off of, as much as it's a bullet, it aids that slider a lot. He has like a 49% whiff rate on that slider this year, Peyton. And the fastball, backspin, carry, we're good. That's all you need to survive in this game right now. So, got to give shout out to Steele Murdock and those and Blair and Beck as well for cracking this list. And they deserve some love. I think Ben Blair himself is a top 50 pick in this draft.
Yes.
I don't think that's an outlier whatsoever, but he has just been so good for Liberty. Put that Liberty team as a 3 seed or a 2 seed anywhere. I think they're a tough out the first game of Ben Blair on the mound.
And sorry, just to interject real quick, I think we're all glossing over the fact that Steele Murdock is an 80 grade closer name. So let's just address that. I mean, you got a guy named Steele coming in the 9th inning. Like, sorry, game's over. Like, just go to the parking lot. Game is over completely.
It just have like the closer intro, kind of like Mason Miller a little bit. Have Corn playing in the background, which I don't know if Murdoch's a Corn guy, but like have something that goes hard like that to kind of fit your name. Oh man, I'm trying to think of a good one. This is a deep pull. Crowbar to build a mountain. If you want to go with the Steele first name, that is as heavy as the song as you can get for an intro, I feel like. People, if you made it this far into the podcast and you want to go listen to that song, please be prepared for the fact that you're going to be put on your butt and strap yourself in. It is incredibly heavy. I have just outed myself as a heavy metal guy. Anyways, last thing before we kind of wrap up here, talk about some players who did miss the board a little bit. And there's always going to be tough omissions every single time we do board updates like this. And I'm sure at the end of the day, like I'll look back at this in 2 months on draft day and be like, why did I leave this guy off? You know, why am I the idiot that left off, you know, a kid from Arkansas that I should have had up there, you know? Hayden Johnson is one of the guys that I left off, and really, again, he hasn't pitched this year. That's the end of the story. Unfortunately, he's not pitched this year. Has an elbow. He had elbow surgery. Obviously, hoping for the best for him. I had high expectations before the year. I still do, because he had like a 29% end zone whiff rate on the fastball last year as a southpaw. And again, you look at everybody else that was drafted a year ago with similar metrics. JD Thompson is a similar guy. So, you know, having an outlier fastball like that does help him. He has a bit of a track record, but maybe not enough to overcome not being able to pitch this year. So he was a tough omission. But again, great kid. I think he's going to come back and do very, very well, whether that be at Coastal or in an organization next year. Dawson Montesa, West Virginia, D2 Adelphi transfer. Another team that does a very good job with going kind of out of the radar a little bit, going the D2 route, getting a lot of those guys. Montez has been great for West Virginia, but I do think he's kind of a little more of a reliever, not a true starter. Thomas Burns has some of the best stuff in the country, but strikes have been an issue this year. Alex Conover, Dalton Wentz, Luke Costello, 2 Wake Forest guys, Clayton Freshcorn, and Eric Segura are guys that were very close to making this list, but ultimately just fell on the wrong side of it. So yeah, that's us talking about the College Top 100 update. Guys, before we wrap up, do you guys have any thoughts as we kind of wrap things up and get ready for our mock draft coming up here on Monday morning?
No, I'm excited for our draft, our first mock draft coming up this early next week. And you know, excited for conference tournaments. It seems like, you know, February a couple weeks ago, and but yeah, it's postseason baseball, man. Postseason regionals, there ain't nothing like it. And soon enough, we'll be in the draft. So yeah, excited, living in the moment.
Yes, sir. It's our time to shine at this point, as I would like to say. Connor, before we wrap up, what do you have?
Yeah, no, just echoing what Peyton said. This is a fun time of year. This is when the flavor starts getting added to the whole draft process. You know, the board starts kind of falling into place a little bit. We start kind of having a better idea of where guys are going to go. You know, we're going to see some great baseball over the next, you know, couple months with, like you said, the conference tournaments, the combine and all that good stuff. So, you know, shout out also to Tyler for, you know, all the work that he puts in for this board, and hope everybody enjoys the update.
Absolutely. Well said.
Yeah, I appreciate it as much as this year's been for lack of a better word, shitty. It's nice to get this stuff out, and credit to you guys again for the hard work and the amazing stuff that you guys have put out over the past couple months for the season. Peyton with the data dives every single week. Connor obviously going out there, seeing guys in Arizona. Connor, you'll be at the Combine this year again, which is fascinating. You did a hell of a job a year ago.
I will.
And
Excited
obviously conference tournaments coming up. Me and Monty will be at the ACC tournament. I will probably not be at a game before then, unfortunately. Have stuff with work going on, and want to give a shout out to one of the coworkers who's in the hospital right now. He probably doesn't listen to this, but Evan, if you're listening to this, I hope you're doing good, and hope to have you back at work here soon. But yeah, as we kind of get ready to go, 2 months in, it's time for nitty gritty. We're going to be getting together for some more pods here as the season winds down, as we get ready to transition into 2027 as well. So for Connor and for Peyton, this has been the On the Clock crew. Thank you for joining. Y'all have a good night.